It's 1 in the morning and a baby is crying. The mother is a 17-year-old high school dropout. Her new boyfriend is getting high in the living room, eating a frozen pizza he bought with her food stamps benefits. They ignore the child because all it does is cry. The downstairs neighbor is sick of it. The cops get called, Child Protective Services takes the baby away, and no one knows what to do. They know that this situation will happen a month from now, and probably more often than that. What's the best option for moving forward? Well, it might never be figured out, but it can be prevented in the future. While society generally looks down upon unplanned pregnancies among those who are unprepared for such a responsibility, I believe that we need to prevent situations like the one above from happening altogether. We need to improve our health status of our country and save our country money. And we also need to make sure that every citizen is provided with a positive environment for their upbringing. The method for doing so could be that we should require prospective parents to get a child license. The license would require physical, mental, social, and financial stability and has the potential to slash key poverty and child development issues in the United States. How many pregnancies are unplanned? The Center for Disease Control and Prevention conducted a survey called the National Survey of Family Growth from 2006 until 2010. The method for the survey was based on 3 scales. The trying scale indicated how much the mother was trying to get pregnant. The wanting scale indicated how much the mother wanted to get pregnant and be pregnant throughout pregnancy. The happiness scale analyzed the happiness for the woman while she was pregnant and until she had the baby. There were also questions that analyzed the extent of which the father planned on staying in the baby's life. The results of this survey were that 63% of births were intended by the mother. The remaining births were split into 2 categories. The first 23 were termed mistimed, meaning that the mother eventually wanted to have a child, but not at the time of conception and not any time in the near future. The remaining 14% were unwanted pregnancies. There was also an increase of births to unmarried women from 18% in 1980 to 41% in 2009. So in about 30 years, the amount of births to unmarried mothers has more than doubled. How do we relate this to a proposed child license? For one, the amount of unplanned pregnancies in combination with the increase of births to unmarried women has contributed to the increase in welfare among single mothers in recent years. As a research assistant for the College of Health Professions, I've had the opportunity to work on an Affordable Care Act grant project that addresses reducing home visiting and nutrition program costs for low-income mothers and families. However, this was only based on one county, so I will cite more representative statistics. The Women's Legal Defense and Education Fund says that almost 45% of single mothers have never been married, and 1/6 of them have never even finished high school. Only 40% of single mothers have a full-time job, and a quarter of them never have a job throughout the year. 40% of single mother families are living at 3 times our nation's poverty rate. All this means that statistically, poverty rates for single mother families are the highest in the country, attributing to over half of family poverty in the United States. Although it is tough to place blame on a single mother or low-income family for such statistics, we must consider the financial implications of unintended pregnancies to our national budgets. In a country that is constantly battling over debt limits, it would be beneficial to be able to cut costs to any and all programs possible. Here are some numbers to support my point. 2/3 of single mother families are on food stamps, and 27% of them receive additional cash welfare benefits. The Temporary Assistance for Needy Families programs accounts for $16 billion annually and is designed for families living in poverty. Food stamps accounted for $78 billion of our budget in 2011. 67% of those are for single-parent households who are unable to adequately provide for their children. If we do the math, this means that more than $52 billion of the federal budget is set aside just for single-parent household food stamps. And that doesn't include the numerous other assistance programs these families or mother may need. In a New York University finding, the spending levels of the top 10 means-tested federally assistance programs cost $621 billion in 2010, 6 times that from between 1968 to 2004. A license to have a child would ultimately require a specified income status to ensure that the parents would be financially equipped to have a child. This could dramatically slash the amount the U.S. spends on assistance programs for families who just plain cannot afford to support themselves or their families on their own. A child license could also improve some key health status indicators in the United States. The World Health Organization did a survey in 2005 that related to a nation's health status. The United States ranked 49th out of all developed countries. An important indicator in the nation's health status is their infancy mortality rate, which analyzes live births in a year compared to deaths of children 1 year or younger within the same year. We ranked 27th in the World Health Organization survey. This rate has the ability to damage our nation physically, socially, and financially. The Center for Disease Control says that the leading causes of infant death are related to short pregnancies, low birth weight, and chromosome abnormalities. The Joint Center Health Policy Institute found evidence providing a link with poor nutrition to these leading causes of death, and also a link to pregnancy complications. In 2011, more than 20% of mothers ages 17 and younger had preterm births. They also found that about 33% of low-income women were anemic during pregnancy, which poses health problems to both the mother and the child. In addition, declines in family meals, food insecurity among those living in poverty, and the increase in junk food consumption for mothers who are not health conscious or educated can attribute to infant mortality rates. A license requiring mental, physical, and financial restrictions could decrease the infant mortality rate in the United States. By requiring that prospective mothers be physically and mentally healthy, the problem with nutrition in relation to infant mortality could decline significantly. Financial stability could also ensure that mothers have access to proper foods and nutrition to protect their health and the health of their child. It is also important that families have a safe and positive environment. New York University published a report called Children, Families, and Poverty, Definitions, Trends, Emerging Science, and Implications for Policy in 2012. The publication states that child poverty can be created from the increasing rates of children raised in single-parent families, also in those of low work and wage rates, and when negative changes to the family structure occur. Low-income families and low-resource communities can also have negative effects on childhood well-being. 15.5 out of 46 million poor Americans are children, according to the National Poverty Center. Poverty is a major risk factor for non-optimal child development. It is directly related to physical, biological, cognitive, academic, and social-emotional development of children. It causes health disparities, education gaps, and an increasing skills gap between what our country's economy requires for its workforce and what it is currently getting. Children born into poverty are far more likely to be involved in child protective services, to drop out of school, to engage in violence, drugs, and to create a similar lifestyle for their children if they have them. The activities of child protective services, according to the DHS, have somewhat shifted in recent years from protecting children from harm to more basic things like interventions with parent education and counseling. The lack of preparedness in mothers and fathers has caused a decrease in the ability for mothers and families to nurture and raise their children in a safe and effective way. Requiring potential families to have income restrictions and mental aptitude to raise a child could have a very high potential of lowering childhood poverty, also lowering education gaps, the occurrence of child protective services interventions, and cause an increase in positive child development. Some of you may be wondering, doesn't having a child license infringe on human rights? My response to that is that you are required to obtain a license for driving a car. You need to have a permit to build or remodel a home. You have to have a license in many careers to ensure the safety and accuracy of your profession. You have to be accepted into college. You have to apply to adopt a dog from a local humane society. And most of all, I want you to hear about just the basic requirements for adoption in the United States. The Department of Family and Protective Services regulates adoption requirements. Though they allow the parent to be single or married, they also require that they are 21 years of age or older, financially stable, and mature. An application must be completed, and an individual's background, home, and lifestyle is analyzed thoroughly. Relative and non-relative references must be provided. The potential parents must agree to home visits with all members of the household, as well as parent education and training. Criminal background and abuse neglect checks must be passed before someone is even eligible. Requirements vary by state but are comprehensively similar. These requirements are meant to promote health, safety, and happiness within families. To put things into perspective, think about what you did this past weekend. You were probably out drinking at the tailgate, ate some Taco Bell, crashed for a few hours, then headed down to Main Street to party some more. You spent $10 of the remaining $100 in your bank account the next day on hangover McDonald's. You can have a kid, but a 30-year-old couple who makes $100,000 a year has to go through a long and strict process to do the same. The question has now become, why wouldn't we want the same safety and wellness requirements for all parents across the nation, regardless of whether or not they plan on adopting? In conclusion, requiring a license for a child has the potential to improve the U.S. health status. It could also decrease federal assistance programs, which could save our country money. A license could increase childhood well-being and decrease childhood poverty and the problems associated with it. This would include an increase to the productivity of the future workforce. Parents who wish to adopt are held against certain standards to promote the health and nurturing upbringing of children and families. The rest of the nation's parents should be too. Thank you.